Hello, I'm Dr. Mack Crayton, and thank you for joining me for part 3 of my 4-part, 5-minute long teaching series on the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah is probably the most commonly used biblical reference for the interpretation that God hates homosexuality and the homosexual. We'll begin part 3. The title of part 3 is Angels Visit the City of Sodom. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is found in Genesis chapter 19. We begin the story where the two male angels arrive in the city of Sodom. They are greeted by Lot, who extends hospitality to them by offering them to spend the night in his home. Genesis 19:4 states that later that evening, all the men of the city, both old and young, and every person from every quarter of the city surrounded Lot's home, demanding that the men come out so that they could know them. Remember that Lot felt that hospitality to strangers was a God-sent responsibility, and he was required to protect his guests at all costs to him and to his family. So Lot offered the crowd his 2 virgin daughters. The crowd never entertained Lot's offer. Instead, they pressed their way up on Lot's door, trying to get into the house to the men. In turn, the angels rescued Lot from the crowd, smote the crowd with blindness, and later allowed Lot and his entire family to escape the city of Sodom before its destruction. In this passage, we look at the phrase "to know them," which has been interpreted to mean to have sex with, because the phrase "to know" is used in the Bible to indicate sexual intercourse. However, it does not mean sexual intercourse every time it's used. So to believe that the usage of this phrase in this context of the story indicates sexual intercourse between men, the men in the crowd, and the male angels, i.e. homosexuality. Also, there's a subtext here also of a very violent act, gang rape. The scripture says that all the men of the city surrounded the house. So this could have been hundreds of men. Are we to believe that the entire city of Sodom, all the men of the entire city of Sodom were homosexual? And also, are we to believe that this crowd of men that could have numbered in the hundreds all intended to rape these 2 angels? In the history of civilization, I've never read or heard of a city where all of the men, both old and young, were homosexual. Have you? Also in Genesis 19:4, it's often ignored that it says all the people from every quarter of the city, which for me indicates there were probably women in the crowd as well who wanted to know who these men were. However, the women allowed the men to take the lead role in asking Lot who these individuals were. A second point I'd like for you to consider is Lot's negotiation strategy. Clearly, Lot tried to negotiate with the crowd by offering his 2 virgin daughters to them in lieu of the male angels. I think everyone would agree in order to negotiate effectively, you must offer something that that individual would want or desire in return for something that you desire or want. Virgin females are not likely the desire of a crowd of gay men. So why would Lot use his virgin daughters to negotiate with this crowd? On the other hand, Lot likely knew the character of the men of the city of Sodom because he lived there. So to offer virgin daughters to the crowd suggests that Lot believed that this would be desirable of the men in the crowd. In this case, it would say that the men in the crowd were actually sexually attracted to females rather than to males. Still, they did not accept Lot's offer for his daughters. And it is possible that that was because the men of Sodom were so focused on trying to find out who these men were. On any other given day, the daughters could have been desirable by the crowd. However, they wanted to know who the men were because they feared that these were strangers who could be adversaries coming in to overthrow Sodom again and return them back into captivity. So, with this background that we now have on the war that Sodom and Gomorrah lost previously, where the citizens were taken into captivity and the riches of the city were taken. And also, we know the rules and customs of hospitality during antiquity. These factors give us reason to consider the new interpretation that the phrase to know them simply meant to know who they were, rather than to have sex with them. Okay? This concludes part 3 of 4 of my 5-minute teachings on the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Please join me on tomorrow for the conclusion of this 4-part series, where we will learn what the Bible states is the true sin of Sodom. I thank you for the privilege of your time. I am Dr. Mack Crayton, and I take this moment to wish you a happy Pride Week and happy Pride Month 2019.